Starting from my childhood, as far as I can remember, I've always heard and been taught who Jesus is. That's why when I was asked what Jesus means to me, on the surface, there's a traditional normalcy that it's been recited and repeated in all of my upbringing and most of my adulthood. On the surface, I know that He's my strength and my strong tower and my peace in the midst of a storm. He's my truth. He's the air that I breathe. He's my healer, my teacher, my savior, my deliverer. Overall, I know that He's my everything. Now, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with those responses because they true. But for me, it's deeper than that. But before I take this deep dive, let's look at John 14:6, the ESV version. Jesus said to him, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Out of all the things I named, none seem to match that He's my sin bearer. Without Him dying on the cross for my sins, not including yours, but mine alone, I can't help but to wonder and ask myself, where would I be? He is the reason that we have a freedom of choice or bondage. You see, this resonates with me because He changed my life. He repositioned me. He postured me. He delivered me from the woes of the enemy so that I can turn back towards Him as He moved me forward in life. He made a way out of no way when soul ties had me bound. Or was it idolatry because I couldn't live without it? I remember going through a period of difficulty when I found myself questioning God as well as my faith. I remember being wrapped in a season of sin filled with adulterous acts. I'm going to call this season my deconstructing of faith because I made the choice to listen to society as it told me it was okay for me to sin. As I held the door open and helped Satan to plant the schemes and the lies in my life in so many ways. But what did God say? Sitting in my bed, journaling one night, I remember praying. I remember tears falling. I remember God responding, and He reminded me that in the midst of all my sin and my disobedience, He had never left me. I recall Him bluntly asking me, what team was I on? Because I was on the slippery slope. He exclaimed boldly that sin was not my bestie, even though I embraced it as if it was. Though I knew and recalled the word often, I know that it tells me that I'm not supposed to be conformed to this world because I was created to stand apart. But y'all don't understand that this sin felt so good. And society had already approved it and gave me the okay that it was normal. I know ain't nobody ever been wrapped up in sin but me, but I'm going to keep talking. So once I got involved in this sin, it engulfed me like a raging river. It was hard to get away, turn away, rebuke. The thought of repenting was far from where I was mentally, emotionally, and or spiritually. Mind you, I'm deep in this sin, enjoying it to the fullest, like a kid in a candy store. Every bit of it. I'm just waddling in it like it's okay. Even in the midst of it all, some parts of me still felt conviction, but I kept ignoring it. I refused to become a topic of the church or my pastor's dinner table. I couldn't talk to nobody about my issue. I didn't even want to admit my guilt, which was necessary for my deliverance. But I also feared being judged, which was a way of condemnation and a tactic from the enemy. It was what they needed me to feel. They had me right where they needed and wanted me to be. I was further than knee deep in this thing. Anybody ever been so deep into something that you felt the guilt and the shame, and you tell yourself, I'm taking this to my grave. This will remain a skeleton in my closet forever. And you tell yourself, I'm going to deal with this on my own. I know, it's okay. It's just me, but I'm going to keep talking. You know, this thing called sin has levels. And on every level, the bondage gets stronger and harder to abort. I was caught up in this thing, enjoying every minute despite the warnings, the dreams, the confirmations, the visions, the struggles, and every other concern that it brought. Again, I know I'm just talking to me about me because I know ain't none of y'all went through nothing like this before. But know that it was in this time that Jesus came and He became my truth. In a dream, He told me that if I didn't change, I was going to die. Now, I wasn't sure what he meant by death, but I'm sure that I was not finna try to figure it out either. He reminded me that he had already died for my sins. So I had to evaluate myself and ask myself the questions that I really didn't want to know the answers to, but I already knew the answers to. Like, are you willing to keep ignoring him and running? Most important for me at that time was, are you willing to die and go to hell? Die spiritually or naturally or both while you're wrapped up in the sin? Are you willing to stay in the lion's den? What is your posture? Are you laying at his feet? I know that a lot of people say, well, I need proof about Jesus. And it's a difficult thing for you. And that's why so many of us end up in these worldly situations. But we have a choice to live in sin, which is bondage, or to escape the world of the enemy and be free. Jesus always gives you a window out, which makes him your way. He lights the path before you. All you gotta do is follow the instructions. He gives you his life so that you can have one, and one more abundantly. It's up to us to take it. He shows us the way out. He proves us that even in our sin, he has never forsaken us, and that our shortcomings are not held against us. He showed me that I was worthy, and even in my sin, he still loved me enough and was willing to deliver me from me. Through it all, I have to tell myself that it's time to put in the work. So tell somebody, it's time to put in the work. Now you need to tell yourself, it's time to put in the work. Sometimes you just got to talk to yourself. Tell your flesh to stand down. It's because of him that we have life. In my dreams, he spoke truth as he guided me back to the truth. He always speaks truth. It's your choice to listen. It's because of him that I can stand before you today and charge you to do better and acknowledge that he is the only way. I will end by asking you to reflect and self-evaluate as you ask yourself, are you willing to allow your fitting into society determine your path to heaven or hell, when the Bible specifically tells you that you were created to stand apart? Are you going to keep playing God to yourself on your own path of lies while you out here playing in these streets of society as they instruct you your rights or your wrongs? Or will you allow Jesus to be your way, your truth, and your life? Just remember,